Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Reena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
All right. Well, we are back in the closet today, back in Bethany's
lovely home.
Yes, our lovely home. Especially when I was listening back to the podcast we did at our house, and there's kind of a weird echo. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yes, I heard it too.
And I was like, I want to get back to the closet. And so here we are. And I wanted to bring up something that's happened in the last week that I found very interesting. And so I just wanted your thoughts on. And it kind of ties into our last couple of podcasts too. Okay. So I'll just start with what happened and then we'll go from there. But I had in 1 week, I've had two colleagues, one that, I mean, they both are probably a couple of years older than me. So they're probably late 40s. One of them might be early 50s, but I don't think so. But point being young. And so I was very surprised. One of them was my co-resident. And so we were, she was mentioning how she's a pediatric dentist. She owns her practice with a partner in the practice. Mm-hmm. And I guess the partner said to her that I've got 5 years and then I'm retiring. Mm. And partner is married to a general dentist, and apparently they've talked and they've planned, and that's their exit strategy. So she said, hey, I'm giving you the heads up now, 5 more years and I'm done. Mm. And my friend then, my co-resident, kind of went into this tailspin panic attack because she has said, I will not practice without my partner. Like, they have such a great dynamic, and the way they balance each other, and philosophy still being the same, but different approaches. And sometimes, my friend is the bad guy, the other one's the good guy, good cop, bad cop, back and forth, right? So they just have this dynamic. And ultimately, I think it's her venting buddy and her buddy who balances her. And that person's going to retire in 5 years. Well, my friend, her husband, they just have a different dynamic. And so she doesn't have, the luxury. Two doctors that have dual income and all of that. Right. So, which I'm more in a similar boat as her. Yeah. Anyway, so she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if it's time to bring in an associate or do I sell too? But what am I going to do? Because I cannot run this practice without her. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Because she's kind of an emotional person like me, right? So she might just be like contemplating all of this. And luckily she's got a 5-year heads up so she can... So who knows? Time. Yeah. And at the end of the 5 years, she might be like, bye, right. I got this. And she's had time to process. But at least in the moment, she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was surprised, just like she was, that this partner who's our age is planning on retiring in 5 years. So basically she's going to be retiring by her 50th birthday or even a couple of years before, which, don't we all wish and aspire and dream? Right. But who knew it could be a reality? And so that was one thing. And I was like, okay. Well, then 2 days ago, I was at the office and I got a letter that I assumed was a follow-up letter. Like, I probably referred this patient to this provider in our area. And so there was a letter from his office. I opened it thinking it's going to be information about a patient. And it was, I just wanted to inform y'all that I have, after many years, I've decided to sell my practice, and so-and-so has bought my practice, and blah, blah, blah. And I was shocked because I'm not particularly close to him, I would say, but we have several things in common. And I just was, for me, I was so happy for him. Right. But at the same time, so sad for me that I wasn't ready to retire. Why am I not in the same boat? How did you get there, man? And also that I was losing this referral source, right, that I could refer patients to because he helps me with some patients. So altogether, though, I was like, wait a minute, I don't even think you're 50. Or if you are, you're 50, 51, maybe. Like, but you're right there. Yeah. What happened? What happened to you? Did you win the lotto that we all dream to? Like, I just couldn't figure out what transpired here. So I asked him, texted him and said, hey man, got your letter, so excited for you. So what are you doing now? And his response was just shocking to me. It was just, I don't really have any plans right now. Just needed to reset and have a breather. And I was like, what? What? So I could see you taking a sabbatical, like closing for a month, maybe traveling, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. You sold your practice? You've had this practice for over 20 years. That's your reset? Yeah. So I'm still just at a loss of trying to process what's going on here. And, then I worry, is it a health condition? Like, what are you doing? Because then his text said, I'm taking a reset. I'm sure I'd love to get back to it one day. And I was like, what does that mean then? You're going to be somebody's associate? Right. Which I just think is so hard to do after you've had your own practice. And I know it's done and people do it as they transition out, but you didn't transition out. You're sold. So I'm just completely baffled by this whole turn of events here.
Especially having those two kind of back to back.
Yes. Yeah. And so I kind of, again, short of it being something's wrong, somebody has cancer in the family, like but you would think if that's the case, you'd want to work even more to be a distraction, to be an income source. So I can't. So really, I just said, hey, can we go to lunch? Because I really want to go the who, what, how. Like, how did you do this? Like,
I got to know this.
I got to figure out, the mindset. Yeah. And so had you been planning this for a while? Did COVID just put you over the edge? Like, what is going on? How did this come to fruition? And I really kind of want to know that. And really, I want to meet my co-residence partner and go, okay, so what are you going to do then? Like, what are you going to do with yourself? And so, I think those are the things that I constantly worry about, where part of me is just like, God damn, I hate this practice today. Some days, and the other days I'm like, you're a fool. Yeah. How many people can have their own business and people pay you for your opinion? Yeah. So I have to remind myself of that. And then where else can you have an impact on patients and their lives and your staff and their lives? Like, it's a feel good. Where else are you going to get that? And it does get quite buried in the murkiness of really what COVID has brought. Running a practice was never, a walk easy in the park. Yeah, there was always the ups and downs, but it's like there just seem to be so many downs right now. And so last week when my, or earlier in the week, whenever it was, that my co-resident mentioned, and I kind of was like, that seems crazy to me. Like, what is she going to do with herself? Yeah. And like, shouldn't she be grateful that, like, maybe cut back your time? Right. But really just to walk away?
To be gone, yeah.
Yeah, do people have, is that my problem? That I don't have a hobby that I want to take up, or that I've got another talent? Like, maybe she's got something else she can do that she can make money with. I don't know. But I just really kind of was like, I'm not ready to walk away. I'm really grateful to we really do have it really good that we can go in, because I thought about that too. Like, what if I sold my practice to my associate and I was just associating for him now? Right. And I was like, you would hate that, because right now, like summer, for example, I know I'm planning to go to the beach for a week and I want to go see my in-laws in California, and I was like, I couldn't do that if I was an associate. I mean, maybe I could, but it wouldn't be as much as, the schedule is slow on Thursday. I don't want to come in. Right. Move these patients. Like, I'm not going to have that freedom. And right now, that freedom's super important to me. Absolutely. Maybe in 5-10 years, it may not be when my girls are older and blah, blah, blah. But right now, so I was like, what else could I be doing that wouldn't be a commitment to something? If I decided to teach, I got to show up, right? So in my mind, I just was thinking, I'm not ready for that yet. And you know what? Regardless of all the staffing issues, the overhead issues, all of that, I really need to be grateful for having this practice that allows me to do what I want to do. Right. But then now on this other colleague, then I was just like, so is it, and you've heard me talk about this so many times, like especially in the last 6 months, 4 months, whatever it is, just feeling pigeon-holed. Yeah. And we talked a lot about it in the last 3 podcasts that we've had. I don't have many options now where I did before. And how do I strategize? What's to strategize? I don't have a staff. This staff wants $80 an hour. So-and-so wants this. The insurance company's going to pay me $20. Like, mom's about to write a bad Google review. So it's just, all of that's just like, I just feel trapped in a corner.
Yeah.
I can't stop Mom from leaving her Google review. And she has a right to be mad because my staff did mess up XYZ. But I've already told them 5 times and they can't seem to either get it or care. But I can't yell at them because then they're going to leave. And to replace them, I'm going to get some other loser that's going to, so I'm just really negative right now. But, again, reality, Reena, it is somewhat of our reality.
It is.
What am I supposed to do here? I'm walking on eggshells and I can't yell at you for this.
Right.
Or before, a couple of months ago, we had a podcast about the bonuses and how I could withhold a bonus. Well, right now, in this last 6 weeks, I don't know that I'm going to withhold anybody's bonus, lest that be the reason you walk away and I cannot replace you. So I'm having to be very delicate with every damn decision. And I just feel pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking, is that what's happening to these 2 colleagues? That you just felt pigeonholed and felt like you had no other resource but to get out.
Right.
Is grass going to be greener for them? Are they going to go, oh man, I wish I hadn't sold my practice? Or I just don't know. I don't know how to process any of this other than to say, I think this whole feeling of being pigeonholed is something that's very pervasive right now. I know you've said a lot of your clients feel exactly the same way, which I'm not happy for, but I am happy that I'm not the only one who feels that way. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on what your clients are saying and what you're advising them. And is there any light?
Yeah, you're right. It is absolutely pervasive. I mean, I feel like every conversation, I've had conversations with clients who had never considered selling before, and the thought has at least crossed their mind. And so I think the tone has been turned up since COVID, and the stress of practice ownership and the lack of options. So you mentioning the word pigeonholed, it feels like there's more problems now and less solutions. And you're so much more dependent upon the staff that you have than you ever were before. And so you feel trapped. And I think that's pretty much every single practice owner. Then you add in the financial pressures like we were talking about in the last episode, where now not only am I dependent upon this staff, but there's this pressure to now produce more and to collect more because I'm living in this, world that's more costly than it used to be 2 years ago. And so there's got to be more income. And so I think everybody's feeling trapped by that. A couple of things that I want to talk about, which you've done this. So we actually were, I would say, ahead of this with you, because when I first started working with you, you had a couple of people that were helping you, but it was kind of associates at that time, but it was, I wouldn't say consistent, or it was kind of just when they were available, you had some help.
Well, I think it was when I was like, hey, in 3 months, I'm going to the Dallas Southwest Dental Conference. Can you cover me this day?
Yes.
Oh, I'm on maternity leave. Can you cover me then? But it was with no regularity. It was just help.
Exactly. And so as you and I started working together, one of the things that came out is this feeling trapped. Like, the practice needs me. I have to be there. And there's these requirements outside of the practice that I really need to be there for, your kids and your parents and all of that you felt like you were kind of torn, and there was this pressure that it all kind of sat on your shoulders. And so our strategy at that point was to get more aggressive with associates. And so I would want to kind of encourage listeners to think about an associate if they've never thought about one before. That can look a million different ways. It looks very different in your practice than it does in other practices. So there's certainly practices that they pull on an associate and it's just a full-time associate. Just the owning doctor is there and the associate doctor is there the exact same time, and they run the same schedule, and it's just a duplicate of the doctor. In that scenario, you've got a fantastic backup built in where you can actually, like you said, when you were going to be out for 3 months, you would call in some help and they could cover for you. Well, now you don't even have to call in help. The help is built in. They're acclimated with the team. The patients are accustomed to them, and you've got this flexibility to be able to pull away from the office. To me, being able to pull away from the office right now is very important. I think about your 2 colleagues. I think about people that I've talked to that are actually that the thought has crossed their mind to sell, and they just want out. They're like, I'm just kind of ready to not think about it. And my thought to that is, you can get to that point where you're not thinking about it and still own the practice. But you've got to build in a second person where it doesn't all ride on you. And so I think there's a lot of different ways that a practice can grow up their patient base and grow up their production to be able to afford an associate, whether that's full-time, whether that's a couple days a week, whether that's totally random, but they're incorporated into the practice and it's an easy, kind of plug and play type person. Just know, for doctors to know that they can step away from their practice and it's in good hands is such a mental relief. So I want to get you to talk about this for a little bit, because you do have an interesting, every associate that we've kind of talked about in your practice, we have always come at it from kind of a risk standpoint. It's like, this one may go and do this. So if this one goes and does this, then we really need to be able to pull this one in that can kind of grow. We've known that we always wanted you to have a steady associate in your practice so that you had the freedom to get away from the practice. So talk a little bit about your associate setup.
Well, and I think everything you just said is your brainchild, because for me, I'm kind of, the mindset of, I don't want to rely on anybody.
Yeah.
And that whether it be the staff or an associate, so I don't want to be pigeon-holed. And so for me, I start coming at it from a very negative place. And, but I think you in the background are going, you don't even know what you need, dum-dum. Like, I got you, right? And so it's taken me time to realize that you had a strategy. For me, it was more, I wanted to step away some. My kids were little, and I think part of that too was finding somebody that I really enjoyed, and I thought, I think this person's, the one that's been with me the longest. And even when he started, we knew, like, he came in going, hey, I do want to start my own practice in my own hometown. Great, go do that, buddy. But at least for you to be here some days to help. And that was at a point in the practice where I was like, I don't even know if I can afford to have you here. I don't know if we have the patient base for you, if I can afford to release that day
right
with my income and all that. But again, remembering that I'm not a real numbers person. And, for me, having the luxury of having a co-provider in the house, i.e. my husband. And so I did say, well, I'm going to just give you this day and see how it goes. And let's see what happens. And it's been very helpful and productive. And then it made me have more joy in the practice, even though he doesn't help decision make, but just having a venting buddy or hey, let's look at this together. And, that's where you pointed it out to me. Hey, you do better. You're happier when you have another person there with you. Yeah. I had never even realized that.
And a lot of people are that way. So, I mean, even you, who we joke a lot about how you're such an introvert, and you're just as happy to kind of just get home and kind of hunker down and be away from people. You, in the professional setting, you really play well off of other providers being there with you. And a lot of people are like that. Being a practice owner by yourself is very lonely, because nobody sees the practice the way that you do. Even your co-providers, which are hygienists, they just don't have the same mindset as you have. And so I think a lot of practices with these solo providers they're in a really difficult spot because they don't have somebody to kind of joke with or commiserate with, or let's look at this case together, or let's tag each other in and out on certain patients that we know this one plays better with the other one. So
right. Or can you believe this assistant just said this or did this? Can you believe that mom just said that? Like, if nothing else, it just releases the tension for me personally, because instead of getting upset about something, we mock it. And so I know I've said that before, but we'll mock a parent, we'll mock a staff. Mostly we're mocking each other. And so it just brings this camaraderie to the office that relieves the level of tension and pressure. Yeah. And so that alone is, now again, he's not helping me make these tough decisions. I mean, I'll ask him and say, hey, what do you think about this person getting a raise? Or what do you think about, but ultimately that's still all on me, but it still feels like I've got somebody who has my back.
Yeah.
And so then we added more associates in there because just by chance I happened to have a couple of friends that I knew were looking for some part-time, and similar to me, where it's one had taught for a long time, quit teaching, and then now she wanted to just do a couple of days of private practice because she wanted to ultimately be mama bear, but still have something to do. So for me, I'm very anxious about bringing an unknown into the practice because there could be so many liability things there. But, a lot of times it's worth it to at least investigate. And again, having that backup is really nice to have. And so, where were we going with this? You wanted me to talk about?
One of the things that I might mention here too, that you kind of alluded to, that I want to circle back to, is you said, you weren't really looking at the numbers, but you kind of essentially just took this leap of faith in bringing this doctor in. To me, that is going to happen with bringing an associate in. Is there's this financial risk that the practice owner takes in sharing some of their income with that additional provider. So I've walked with a lot of practice owners where they've got a nice full schedule. They don't want to be working as hard and they don't want to be working as much, but financially they're making what they need to be making. And so there is this little bit of a ramp up that we try to do where we really get aggressive with some marketing. We really get, that new patient wheel turning, but not for long. I always tell people we're going to ramp it up just slightly for you. It's going to get just a little bit worse before it's going to get better. But we're going to get this chain of marketing going so that you can bring in this associate and it's still going to cost you something. So knowing financially that you can prepare for a period of time, normally about 6 to 8 months is what it takes before you get back up to where you were. But 6 to 8 months, you're going to be making a little bit less. And financially, have you put yourself in a position to be able to do that?
But it's almost like the room, right? Like, when do I equip the next room? Yeah. When do I hire the next hygienist? Like, it's all that same thing where you're going, oh gosh, like to take the loan to build the room. But once you've got it there, you're like, no, we don't need the room. We're good. Almost always you could use the room.
Absolutely.
And if you have it, now there's all of this influx of what you could do with that room and who you can put in there and what you can produce out of it. And it's the same with the associate. Yes, you're sharing some, but you also have much more availability. And now that the availability is there, the floodgate is open and more people are coming in. And so it really does end up being more than you would have anticipated if you were going, I don't know that I have enough for the associate to do, because that's exactly what I thought. I'm not going to have enough for the associate to do. And before I knew it, like, we were both
rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the good old phrase, if you build it, they will come, right? Like, if you put in the space for that growth, most of the time it's going to naturally kind of fill because the space is there. And again, you may have to put a little extra work if you haven't ever really had to market. You might have to kind of get a little bit more aggressive with that to get some more flow in, but it will pay off. It's
an investment. Like anything else, it's an investment. You're gonna pay a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then you invest it
yeah.
in the room, in the hygienist, in the associate, whatever it is, and then you will see
this growth that comes from
I've never not seen it. I guess I'll put it that way. Whether it was a room or the hygienist or the associate, I've never not seen that it paid off.
Exactly. And again, it wasn't that it was not risky. It's just a good risk to take because I've never seen it not pay off either. And so I think there's always that moment where it's like, oh gosh, is this the right decision? Yep, probably, because I've never seen it not work. So I think the other component to that, talking about pigeonholing, is we do have to make sure that we are, from a personal standpoint, not stretching ourselves so thin financially that we can't make that, like, okay, I can't go 6 to 8 months with slightly less income because I need every penny of that income. Okay, you've pigeonholed yourself. You've done that, and you need to figure out a way to kind of reduce your personal expenses so that you can then have the budget to be able to make less income to provide room for this associate. So I think that's another important component of this that can make you feel trapped and can certainly send people into a panic when the costs are rising and it's coming out of one spot, which is the doctor's pocket, literally it's coming out of the doctor's pocket because the practice is producing less, that we've got to be really careful not to live such a, life that just soaks up every ounce of income that we have. So we do have to keep that in mind as we talk about associate pay, because you will take a hit initially, as you probably did. You may not know that you did, but you probably did for a little bit, and then it picked back up and the practice has grown because that associate was in place. So you had the one associate for the long time. We knew that he was moving on. Knowing that he was moving on and that was getting closer, you and I had a conversation where we brought in an additional associate. So right now you technically have 2 associates.
And it's interesting because that's where we kind of looked at each other and went, is this where I don't have an associate anymore? Because all of this was happening last year. It was kind of this time, January, February-ish last year, where I had a potential associate, and we figured the current associate, his building was supposed to be done sometime in the summer. And so we knew he's probably going to hang out, at least a day a week for a year while his practice picks up.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. So maybe I don't really need an associate. But again, it's a lot of unknown. And I know he's not going to do anything, just walk away altogether, but maybe he does. So if he does walk away altogether, does that mean that I'm there the 4 days? Could I do that? Yeah, I can. Do I want to do that? I don't know. Because I'm already pulling my hair out with the time that I am there. So anyway, I'm all over the place and don't really, in a way, maybe it would be good.
Yeah.
If they all walked away and I didn't have a choice, because sometimes these choices are what drives me crazy. And it's like, okay, if I don't have a choice, then the answer is what it is. Anyway, so he was going to be stepping out, but the timetable is so, in flux, we just don't know. So now we have this other one that was interested, but he had several job opportunities as well. And even now, so he ended up, the newer associate is with us currently, 1 day a week? Maybe 1.5 days a week, something like that?
Yeah, 1 day 1 week and then 2 days the next week. So
before when he started, it was just 1 day a week.
1 day, yeah.
And then he picked up 2 days with another doc and 2 days with another doc.
Yeah.
And so now fast forward to, so that was last year at this time. And I kind of, was having all the reservations that I always have is, okay, this is a new young provider. Am I going to like him? Is the staff going to like him? Is he worth the investment to bring in? Is he going to do good work? I don't know. Like, I'm at a point where I'm kind of just, cranky pants. Do I really want to be the nurturing and, make the investment in you?
Yeah.
So that was certainly one consideration. And then you were the one who said, but you like working with another provider. I'm really worried about you working by yourself because you do better mentally with a, partner in crime. And I was like, yeah, that's true. But is it worth it at this point? Kind of knowing, at this point last year, we were right in the middle of all the COVID nonsense. And certainly I thought things were going to go back to the way they were. At this point last year, I really wasn't anticipating we'd still be where we are. So head in the sand, whatever you call it, being naive, being dumb, being hopeful, whatever it is, right? So for me at that point, though, it was, well, we are kind of struggling with staffing a little bit. It wasn't as dire as it is now, but it was kind of going, if I did cut out the associate, could I shrink down the team? Like, is that the source of my frustration? Is it the team? And so really trying to dig deeper and go, is it? What is it? What is the source of my, tension here and there? So anyway, fast forward to it was this point last year. So we went ahead and I just said, let's just see where the chips fall. He may not want to even take a position in our office because I can't offer you the week. I don't know when the other one's leaving. And so new guy knows that old guy gets the preferential treatment because he's got the seniority. So new guy may not even want to be in our office because he had all of these job offers. So, but he accepted the spot. So okay, so there he is. And it's been a good thing, and now 6 months later, I can't even believe it's been over 6 months because I'm not there with him most of the time. So for me, I kind of have forgotten he's there a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, but I think everything's going well. But now we're back to the negotiation table where he's going, okay, well, in the summer, I will have been here a year. now existing associate is that much closer to stepping out. And I'm back in the same conundrum of going, do I tell old guy, bye, you're out, young new guy wants to take over and your practice is open, bye-bye? Do I tell new young guy, you know what, especially in today's climate, like I am just beat down with, I don't want to be pigeonholed by my staff that's now wanting $1,000 an hour and I can't afford them and they're about to leave to the practice next door and now I don't, yeah, you and me are there. Yeah, we've spent the marketing dollars. We've got the patients. We can't see anybody because I don't have an assistant. So bye-bye. Like, get out of here. I'm kind of going, what do I do here? Mm-hmm. And do I drop the insurances, which means less patients? But then why would he stick around? Because that's going to affect his income.
Right.
So I don't know. We're trying to figure out where am I moving my chess piece, and I'm really just kind of left at a standstill.
Yeah.
But having said all of that, it is nice to go, okay, well, if I do want to take vacations in the summer, which I think I do, at least there's somebody there to help buffer. And I think, especially in pedo, I think our challenge really is right now, it's crickets in the office.
Yeah.
I'm way overstaffed right now. Mm. But when MLK came, we couldn't have had enough people. President's Day is coming. We've got spring break coming. We've got the summer coming. So it's like I kind of take a hit at the slow times to invest in this person so that I can make hay when the sun is shining in the summer.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to, as you have kind of talked through your thought process too, to point out that this is not like, okay, great, I got my associate in and now I never have to think about this again. It is something that you're constantly thinking about, but you're always thinking about it when it comes to your preferences. It's like, yes, what's best for the practice, but at the end of the day, what do I want? And I think and I'm not going to say that everybody is in the same boat, but I feel like the people that get to the point where they just sell their practice, they just didn't give themselves enough options. And I feel like having an additional provider, even if that's a specialist that you bring in that could produce for you while you're out, or getting comfortable with getting your patients and your team comfortable with a temp dentist that is available through the temp agency, just giving yourself some freedom is, I feel like it's always been critical, but for whatever reason now with the stress level, it's more critical than it has ever been before. And so I think these people that are walking away, they're walking away from it's your best investment tool. You're going to make more out of that practice than you could make doing just about anything else. And you just got to the point where you pigeonholed yourself so much that you did walk away. I mean, in all honesty, if we really kind of play it out, like even thinking through your scenario. So right now you've got the long-term associate that could start to kind of dwindle down and fade out. But you've also got this newer associate that I think could kind of fade up and take on more responsibilities. I mean, you could ultimately get to a point, and many listeners could get to this point, where you've staffed your office with providers that you trust, your patients have grown accustomed to them, that you could get to a point where you work one day a week and the practice would be fine. And so I think people, especially practice owners, they never think about the option that they could get to a point where the practice technically doesn't need them. And then they've staffed it, that practice is producing like it needs to be producing. And yes, that the owning doctor that works one day a week may not be making as much, but they're still making a whole heck of a lot more in one day of practicing than they could ever make associating somewhere else. And so that's an option that I think, I wish I could catch these people kind of before they make that decision to sell, because I'm like, have you not considered the fact that if you invested just a year more of your time and really brought in this associate and got them up to speed and got the patients happy and all that you could still own a practice and really not have to practice? And that's still an option that's really worth considering. And I just think people get to the point where they're like, I'm just done. I want to be done.
I think I'm just done. And then, I'll be honest, like that to me is all the thoughts about bringing an associate. Can I afford it? Will my patients want to see them? What if the associate is doing crappy work and then now I've got to fix all of that and I paid them and now I've lost the patients because my associate did crappy work? Or what if I get this associate up to speed and then they leave me and then I got to start over and now I've become dependent upon the associate being there and now they're gone. And so I've had all of those fears, and I still do from time to time. And especially to keep myself from being pigeonholed, I start going, yeah, like existing associate is leaving, maybe he's out by the end of the year. New guy, he's still young. He doesn't know what he wants yet. He's not married. He could leave. He could whatever. I can't worry about all of that right now.
Yeah.
All I can know that I can do right now in this season of my life where my kids are young, my parents are older, I am tired. And, it's like chicken or egg. What is making me so tired? I don't know, but I'm just mentally tired. I feel like I've been run over by a truck. And so if nothing else, for the next foreseeable future of 2 to 3 to 4 months, I've got coverage in the office. I'm paying the bills. We're holding steady. And I think that's a thing that I do a lot of is going, but what if, but when, and you're the one who has to try to remind, okay, stop. You you do not have a crystal ball. You cannot plan this out that far in advance, but right now, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And should associate leave, both of them tomorrow, say bye, I'm not coming back. Could I step in and handle it? Yes, I could. And what would be my strategy at that point? Dropping insurance is great. Yep. I'm fine. So then maybe I'm only going to work 3 days a week, but you know what? That's what I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
Or so many days that I'm able to just kind of do my own thing. And why do I get to help on certain boards that I help with? Or why am I volunteering? Or how do I have time to do chart audits? All of those things that bring me joy. Are they money makers? No, but is it fulfillment for me?
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
With the office. And even now, like W-2 time, like I looked at our W-2s, I'm like, oh my God, look at what these associates made in my practice. But then I looked at mine and I went, look at what I made in my practice. And I was probably there 1 day a week. Let's be honest, maybe 2.
Yeah.
So to make what I made with hardly being there. Now, yes, mentally I was there doing a lot of the admin stuff and looking at all of that. But dude, it's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Where else could I go that I could make what I made without physically going into the office?
Exactly.
We were making jokes the other day. I think over spring break, I've got myself in the office 5 days, and I was like, 5 days? Who works 5 days? What have we come to as a society? Like, this is madness. And so my husband always jokes with me. He's like, you are ridiculous. You're a ridiculous diva. And yes, I am, but I could not do it without the associates.
Right. Yeah. It's bought you the freedom that I really feel like a lot of people need that freedom. And maybe it may be that an associate isn't an option for, a practice or a practice owner. Maybe it is just the certain type of demographic or market where there's either not an associate available, which happens a lot in a lot of small towns, or it's just not a big enough practice. And honestly, in that, my encouragement would be that I just am so big on mental health right now for practice owners that you've got to buy yourself freedom in some other ways. So one of my clients, I was just talking with him a couple weeks ago, and he works a lot. And, he talked about, he's like, I've really been pushing him on goals, and he's been really driven on what do I want? What's my why? All of that. And he said, I've got to be away from the office more. And now I'm willing to take the financial risk of being away from the office, 4 weeks out of the year. And, these are going to be the weeks, and the practice is going to be shut down, and there's staff, issues that we've got to think about. How are they going to get paid? There's, the practice still needs to produce what it's going to produce. So how do we up the production in those other, 48 weeks out of the year that we don't have to take this financial hit? So maybe it's not an associate, but it's buying yourself time to be away and to recharge and to mentally kind of come back, refreshed. I've got another client that just has decided, like, I'm going to cut that extra half day a week. I'm not going to work it. I'm going to get an associate, a very part-time associate that just works that 1 half day a week for me, but that's going to buy me a 3-day weekend. And that's what I need. Do it. Like, just do it. It's not worth, to me, it's like, if you will take the time and energy to protect your mental and emotional health, you're going to practice that much longer, or you're going to own a practice for that much longer. Maybe you're not even the one practicing in it, but you're going to own that investment so much longer because you took the time to actually protect yourself. And I just feel like that's such an important topic for people right now.
And it is hard to let go of the control, especially in a moment of what we keep talking in the last couple of podcasts of how little control we have, which is what's driving up this mental anxiety through the roof. But that's where you know, again, something's got to give. And so where are you giving? Or even, you know, in the last podcast, we were talking about finding assistance, and like now my reviews are coming up this week, and I need to prepare myself for what these staff are going to say, or if they do leave, because the team has their own needs as well. And so, you know, I haven't really considered that up until right now, until we were doing the podcast. I was like, oh crap. Yeah. You know, like if I have these needs, they do too.
Yeah.
And so it's like it could make its own, the decision is made of its own volition, right? Yeah. Like if my 2 assistants quit and I have 0 assistants, well, then that changes the practice quite a bit. Then I have to go in this direction. So maybe it is that I'm only practicing 3 days a week, and I'm only taking these insurances. And so it's that kind of, I guess my encouragement or my takeaway would be, things are so different that we can't just keep functioning on, oh, I'm a 5-day-a-week doc and I always take these, insurances, and I only take vacation at this time. Before you pigeonhole yourself into that this is what I've always done, really going back and looking at multiple aspects going, does this still work and does it make sense? Down to, do I really need this many staff? Do I really need to take all of these insurances? Do I really need to be open? I think that's one thing that has always baffled me, where I think I've used to always say, well, I would rather cram in 5 days worth into 3 days.
Yes.
And some people, they're like, oh, we're so busy. I'm looking at their schedule. I'm like, where's the busyness?
Right.
And it's like, because in their minds, now there's something to be said for being there all 5 days, because that's what patients want. That's what staff wants. But I think there's a balance to be struck there where I'm like, we saw the same number of patients. I just saw them in 3 days and you saw them in 5. There's no right or wrong. But when you are up against overhead and staffing and your own mental health, can you wiggle and play with your own parameters to make it work for you?
You have to.
You have to.
Right? I mean, that's what I wish I could scream that from the mountaintops. Like, you have to. And if you don't think about it now, what you're going to do is fizzle out earlier than you wanted to fizzle out. You close the doors, you walk away because you didn't protect yourself. Like, it is essential to do that now. So I think your encouragement is spot on. Like, if it's time to evaluate all the options, it's like, let's open up Pandora's box. Let's think about, okay, if this happened, if my 2 assistants walk away and I have no assistants, okay, what is my strategy at that point? If this, hygienist leaves and I can't, bring anybody else in, does that mean that I'm working harder and I'm doing hygiene now and I'm continuing the same level of practice? Or does that mean that I'm cutting my patient base? Maybe I'm closing the door to this particular insurance company, or not really marketing anymore because I can't handle the new patients. Like, we have to kind of strategize to go, okay, if this comes my way, this is what I'm going to do. Because half of it is just the worry of the what ifs. Well, okay, get down, plan. What if this happens? This is going to be my plan. But also, how am I doing with the current situation? Am I staying mentally and emotionally strong, not only for myself, but for the practice for now? And can I sustain that for however many years that I need to practice? Like, we just have to pause, and there's no reason we have to continue to just grit our teeth and bear it, and we'll make it to the finish line. No, you're going to be really tired when you make it to the finish line, or you're going to bump that finish line way up because you're done. And so I think it's...
And then selling your practice before you hit 50.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe he did look at every angle and thought was the right option for him, but it just seems very weird to me. My gut tells me that he had enough. He probably had, we practice in the same area, the same ridiculous patients, and then poor insurance reimbursements and struggle to finding an appropriate team. And he probably just probably had a buyer and was like, bye, peace, I'm out.
I'm done. Yeah.
And, either that or it's a health problem. I don't know which one it is, but it's just very odd for him to walk away. And it's one of these two. Either he couldn't handle it anymore mentally and just said, I'm done, or a physical ailment. I don't know. Yeah.
And again, I mean, it could very well be any of those, but I think you and I have both been surprised, throughout these last couple of years of people that just decided, boom, I'm done, because that stress level hit a point where they just thought it's no longer worth it. And I guess my point is, don't let that stress level get there. Like, be in tune enough to know, like, I am hating life right now, and I have a choice in how to change it. I've got options that may not feel like real options. They may feel extravagant or risky or whatever, but I got to consider them now, because my mind, my tool, my body is the best thing that I've got going for me, and I've got to protect that as long as I possibly can. And that means doing whatever it takes to stay sane mentally and emotionally and physically healthy. And I do think associates are a great tool in that. But even if an associate isn't an option, I'd shut the practice down for a month. I don't care. Whatever it takes. That 1 month, if it buys you 5 more years of practicing, it was a month well spent. Like, do whatever it takes to protect that investment of the practice and to be able to stay in it long term. Any other closing thoughts that you have on that?
No, I think that's a great one. Don't let it bubble up to that point.
Yeah.
I know right now Encanto is a popular, that song, The Surface Pressure. Yes. That's what I keep thinking about, right? That song gets stuck in your head, but don't get to that surface pressure where you're just going to blow up. Yeah. Because like you said, it is your best investment. And a lot of times it looks like it's nothing but one headache after the next, but really stopping to think about going, what else could I do that's going to yield me the same control and flexibility? And, I go back to that. Yeah. What else? How many people in the world could own their own business and have a bank that it's going to be a pretty successful business?
Yeah.
And that is very difficult to find. To add the next twist to it, I think about, hey, I'm a female, immigrant parents. Yeah. For me to be afforded this opportunity to have my own practice and have a successful practice, like, there are millions of women around the world that would kill for this opportunity.
Right.
And damned if I'm going to pilfer it away because I'm stressed over no staff. No, ma'am. I'm not going to let myself be pushed there.
Right.
I'm going to figure out and say, okay, well, how do I put the surface pressure down so that I can keep this investment for as long as I want it? Something you said to me last time on the last podcast was, you should walk away when you're happy and ready to walk away. Yeah. That had never occurred to me, Bethany.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me. It hadn't. And even when thinking about it, I was like, what is she talking about? Why would I step away if I was happy? So it took me a minute to really understand what you were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Because I've never talked about walking away unless I was miserable. And so I've really got to, that really was an eye-opener for me to go, you have been afforded this opportunity.
Yeah. And
there are millions of women around the world that would want the same opportunity. Yeah. And I do not want my own befuddlings to mess it up. Like, I need to walk away when I'm like, man, life is so good. Bye, y'all. I'm getting on my yacht and sailing away. It's been fun, or
it's so true.
It's got to be that, not that I'm stepping away because I've just been so fed up.
That you've been wrung out.
That the surface pressure has exploded.
Yeah. That's a good,
Do you have surface pressure? Could we lay that music here as we go?
Okay, listeners, I'm going to overlay, hopefully, a really good song. If I can't do it, go and listen to the soundtrack. It's Encanto soundtrack, and it's called Surface Pressure, and I love the song. It's so applicable. It is literally, we could have just played the song and not talked this whole time. So,
thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.